4, the expectation is that green equals certainty of cost and calculable risk. What do I mean by that? By that I mean that when people sit down to design a green building, they want to know exactly how the building is going to do over the next 5 years. They want to know what is the price of energy and how much money they're going to get back from the building in the next 4 years. They want certainty. They want to be able to calculate, and they want to be able to do it at the drawing board. But what if there's no certainty in life? Yeah, not everything can be promised. Yeah. If you look at how most buildings are designed, developers will allow you to do something if you can show them what will happen over the next 5 to 10 years. This is known as return on investment, ROI. Yeah. You don't know it now, but you will, trust me. When you get out and practice, you will have to deal with ROI. Every time you say something, Mr. Architect, what's the ROI for this? When do I get my money back? You want to buy recycled paint, or you want to buy recycled carpet? What's the ROI? There is no ROI on recycled carpet. It's just recycled carpet. It's good for the environment. Forget it. Engineer comes along. I want to use very good chiller. What's the ROI? About 15 years. Forget it. Not enough. I want my money back in 5 years. If I'm going to spend more, if I'm going to spend 10% more on a piece of equipment or an idea or a feature or a technology, I want the money back, and after 5 years, I want to make profit on what I've invested. How long does the building last? Something very wrong with that, right? We are only prepared to talk about 5 to 10 years, even though the building lasts for 30 to 50 years. If you're lucky, it can go on for 100 years. In Singapore, if you're lucky, it goes on for 20 years. That's the life of a building in Singapore. But I'm just saying, yeah, this is a problem. The problem of what do we do if we want to talk about 50 years? We don't even know what the price of oil is going to be tomorrow. How are we going to talk about anything if it's about 50 years? Yeah? How do we design for that? This is another really interesting project. It's called the Met. It's a condominium in Bangkok by a Singapore architect, Woha firm. I like this project because it's actually a very high-end condominium. And if you go to Bangkok and you look at all the neighbors of the Met, buildings like this, like that, they all are fully glazed and fully air-conditioned. Yeah, they all have a central stair core, and the apartments are all around. There's no way to breathe, for the building to breathe. Yeah. What that means is that people are only prepared to look at the short-term investment. Yeah. They want to design a building so that they can sell the building within 5 years. Every one of these people living in this, they went to the apartment, they looked at the apartment, wow, very nice, wow, I've got aircon, okay, I buy. These are the things, this is the way in which the building sector in Bangkok operated. Well, it still operates like that. I wouldn't say they have changed. But the Met made a difference. They changed the equation. Yeah. And they did that in a variety of ways. One of the things that they did was that they invested heavily in greenery. The podium is completely covered with plants. Every apartment has its own private garden, tree. The facades are all green. At 3 different levels, yeah, there are these decks with plants and greenery and ventilation. This is what the facade and the building looks like. And when I got my students, I get my students to do all these things. It's quite fun. They go and survey the project, and 65% of the people felt that they had good interaction with their neighbors. This was actually higher than Singapore public housing, I should tell you, very strange. 60% said they were very satisfied with the greenery in this environment. The other thing that the architects did was that they pulled the building apart. Instead of having a central core with apartments around it, it actually had 6 towers that are connected by bridges. Why did they do that? They wanted to create movement of air and light, both horizontally and vertically through the building. So these are all the spaces in between the blocks. Yeah. From far it looks like a big building, but actually when you go inside it's 6 buildings. And there are all these gaps. And I got my student to measure the ventilation and daylighting in all of these spaces, and it works really well. When you open the windows, You get a breeze coming through. So, what do you think? Do you think all these rich people who buy condo in the Met, they all become so happy that they forget about air conditioning and open the windows? Some of them do. We did a survey, and 80% said they were very comfortable in their home. 45% said that they have low to moderate reliance on air conditioning. Now, I want to say that the Met has changed the way Bangkok condos are sold today. Yeah? Now everybody is trying to be a Met in Bangkok. Because now they all say, oh, you buy my condo, you got ventilation, you got daylight, very good. It's changed the dynamics of the marketplace. It's been a trigger for that. But I think what's interesting about it is that they still provide people with air conditioning, but they are looking at the building not as something that operates today when energy is cheap and people are prepared to spend money on energy and prepared to waste it, but they are looking at what happens 20, 30, 40 years from now. The guy who's living in the Met will have a choice. Yeah. He or she will be able to open the window and still have a functioning environment. The neighbor will not have a choice. They will move out. Because when the energy becomes too expensive, or when there's not enough energy, those buildings will not function. This one will survive. So the point is that what they're doing is that they're designing for the future. They're not just designing for what is the expectation today. They're designing for what happens in 10, 20, 30 years. We don't know. We don't know what will be the situation. What we want to do is to design our buildings to be prepared. And what we want to do is design buildings so that they are ready for the future. This is called future resilience, future proofing. Yeah? Here is another example of a project that I recently visited in Sri Lanka. It's a resort. This is coming out in the next issue of Future Art, by the way. Another sales pitch. We're doing a story on ecotourism, and I went to see this hotel, and I was very surprised because this hotel was designed about 12 years ago. Long before everybody was talking about green. Green is about 5 years old in Asia, 5 to 7 years old in Southeast Asia. Before that, you talk green and they all look at you like you're an alien. What are you talking about? This project was conceived in 2002, and they sat down and they said, we want to build this resort. How can we design it for the future? Not for 2002, but for the next 30, 40 years. What is it about this project that will endure, that will last? Yeah. Tomorrow, another resort next door will come and they will have better furniture, better bedrooms, better looking waitresses, I don't know, whatever people want to go and stay in a resort for. Yeah. But this has something that none of them will have. Very hard to replicate. It has biodiversity. They lifted the entire resort off the ground and they converted this thing into a natural habitat. This used to be farmland and they turned it into a nature reserve. And they constructed wetlands, they constructed different types of vegetative brush, shrubs and all that. And now they have counted, they said, since when they started, when they opened to now, they've actually been counting how many birds, insects, reptiles have actually come into the estate. I don't know what's happened to those pictures. Actually, it's a pity because I wanted to show you a visitor to the resort that they did not expect. It's a crocodile. He comes into the waterways because all the waters are connected. He kind of wanders into the resort from time to time, and all the guests sit there and watch the crocodile swimming around. This is an endangered species in Sri Lanka. It's called the lorry, and they now have lorry tours from the resort. You can go and look for the lorry at night, and it's considered very fragile, very precious. So, what I'm getting at is this: that they, in 2002, began to look at what was going to happen in the next 20, 30 years, which is the loss of nature, our need for nature increasing, our need to reconnect with nature, and they invested in something like this. And they have been hugely successful. People are prepared to pay a ton of money to stay in this hotel because you can't buy this. You can't buy this anywhere. We are getting to a point where something like this speaks to us in a very profound way. So if you adjust the boundaries of time and space, if you rethink the building not just as a building that is going to last for 10 years or a building that is a site and shell, if you start to think about it from a longer perspective, then sustainability kicks in. Yeah? We change the way we value things. And sustainability takes the long-term view. Yeah? It is about uncertainty, whereas green is about certainty. Where do I put my money? How much return do I get? Sustainability is about thinking about uncertainty with intelligence. So you do that by understanding resources and flows over the life of the building. You may be very imprecise, but if you do this, you will begin to see a difference between how we value and what we value. You begin to make a different kind of argument. So that the architects of the map, they were arguing with the developer, yes, pull the building apart. Yes, it's inefficient. We cannot rely on one single service core. But I promise you, this building will be something that will last much longer than all the other condos. And you will be able to charge a bigger price. Which is probably why they did it. Knowing developers, they're not altogether interested in sustainability. But they bought the argument that if I do this, it changes the way people see their home. And if they see their home as something they want to live in for 50 years, something they want to give to their children, not just as an investment, but as a home, right? They will change their minds about how to design it. 5, green equals profit. Yeah. Everywhere you read, oh, don't worry, spend a little bit more, it's profitable. The price of the real estate will go up. You can charge more for rental. The money argument, the business argument is all there. My question is, who profits? Who is the one that benefits when a building is green? I want to show you 2 quick case studies, two examples. This is a hospital in Singapore. It's called the Khoo Teck Puat Hospital. If you guys ever go to Singapore for a trip, you must visit this building. It's very, very interesting. It's the most unusual hospital you can find anywhere in Asia. And the Khoo Teck Puat Hospital was designed as a series of buildings that is wrapped around a central courtyard, a garden. Yeah? And the garden is connected to a big pond. It's a stormwater pond that actually doesn't belong to the hospital, but they were opening up the hospital to the view and the wind. And they do this because they know that it's good for patients. Yeah? They can see water, they can feel the breeze, so on and so forth. This is what the hospital looks like in its context. All around the hospital is public housing in Singapore. Yeah? And in front of it is the big pond, the big water body. Yeah? So all of this here is public housing. This is the hospital. This is the water body in front of it. Now, a hospital is actually a private building, meaning to say it has a very specific function and role, which is to take care of people who are sick, right? To make them get better. But they went beyond the agenda, the role of the hospital. They actually started to invite the community in. And they did this by tapping into the movement corridor. There's a passage in front of the hospital that has been created that the people living here use as a shortcut to get to the MRT station, to get to the bus stop, to get to markets. They walk across in front of the hospital. And as they walk across, they encounter the big garden in front of it. And this garden invites them in. It says, come, it's your space. Today, if you go to Khoo Teck Puat on an average day, there are more people who are not sick than there are people who are sick. They have been very successful, so much so that they actually don't know how to turn people away. On Sundays, this whole thing turns into a park.